time we really give this socialism thing a chance, y'all.
Comrades, this isn't a dream. The revolution has reached Times Square. History bends toward us.
$12 for a burger? In the Soviet Union, we would have nationalized the beef and shot the manager. These prices will be corrected.
This time it'll work. Right.
Self-centered walking dead trash, and we're such zombies, we're such self-centered crap that we don't even notice hell itself rising up against us, and my very spirit is just absolutely ready at every level to we're under attack, people. Where is the animating contest of liberty? Where is the spirit lifted up against these people? All right, I'm sorry. I focus in on the evil. It really freaks me out, and I don't get like that a lot, but I know that the enemy spirit, when I start talking about it, and it just gets to me, because my spirit gets close to that evil, and I feel it, and my whole spirit just goes, They call that crazy. That's not crazy. That's my will, my human spirit saying, crush those that would hurt the innocent. Go after the enemy. Build a civilization. Be honorable. Crush the snakes under your feet. Get behind me, Satan.
Yeah, they're not
nuts.
Not for anything. Not for anything. I know Alex Jones is a lot more muted now, and he talks a little bit more like this. Okay, I like that, Alex Jones.
Oh, he's nuts.
And then he has to get behind me, saying, "I'm sorry. This spirit's moving me." You know, in fact, when you sent me the clips and we played that second clip in Times Square, when I first saw it, I thought it was real. You know, because these people are so insane. I thought the guy dressed up like Karl Marx was actually like, oh crap, what's this video that Joe sent me? Then I realized that it was a spoof. Welcome everybody to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. And once more, brothers and sisters, let us go into the beach. The beach is good. Summertime.
Nice.
But tonight, we're going into the breach. So please, wherever you're watching the video, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help us out. So tonight's all about the New World Order. We played Alex Jones. Alex Jones has been talking about this for a long time. In fairness, Glenn Beck, I remember back in the day, just to give everybody a little backdrop, I remember Glenn Beck back in the day talking about the New World Order when he was on Fox News, when he had that slot on Fox News. And Hannity, who now is all in on the New World Order. Hannity used to dismiss it as conspiracy theory, all right, but then, his ratings were slipping, so Hannity had to get on board with that. Tells you what I think of Sean Hannity. But Glenn Beck was saying it 20 years ago. Bottom line is, we've known this now for the last few years. Yuval Harari, what's his name? Klaus Schwab. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Mark Carney up in Canada. They tell you right out they want a New World Order, and they tell you the means by which they're going to accomplish that New World Order. So how is that a shock? What else is part of the New World Order, Joe Rossinello? Regime change. I thought regime change was over. I thought we weren't doing that anymore. Matt Gaetz, more MTG. They got something to say about that. We got the clip there. J.D. Vance, who I respect, Joe. I respect J.D. Vance. Got a clip of him. I don't even know what he's saying.
Yeah.
Usually I do. I do. Okay. Thomas Massey. I mean, you got MAGA is climbing all over this guy. I'm sorry, man. If you had a House of Representatives and a Senate full of Thomas Masseys, this country's problems would be over faster than Donald Trump could say Donald Trump. That's not a knock against Donald Trump, okay? But that's what we're talking about. You got the New World Order taking place in New York City right now. We got to get into that. I mean, I never thought I'd be the type of person that I've been living in New York City would vote for a Democrat. I'd be voting for Eric Adams. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. Joe, how was your week? What do you think about what's going on around here?
Well, I think the big news is New York. Everybody's talking about it. We're going to cover it as well. What's his name? Mandati or something?
Mandati. Zoran Mamamdi, I think his name is. I don't even want to know his name. I don't even want to know his name.
He's the real deal, dude. And when I mean by the real deal, I think he's probably going to win. Interestingly enough, the governor of New York, Hochul, is not endorsing him, but Bill Clinton endorsed him, which shocked me. Chris Cuomo, we're not doing any clips of his, but I've listened to two. He's going on a rampage. Obviously, that gentleman beat his brother, so he probably has an axe to grind, but he makes a lot of sense. They're appealing to the 20% as opposed to the 80% of America. He thinks they're going to destroy the Democratic Party. Senator Fetterman in Pennsylvania also commented. He said this is giving the Republicans Christmas in July, and it'll be used against the Democrats. However, in New York City, when you have millions of migrants who most probably will find a way to vote, when you have people who are disenfranchised, when you have people who believe the lie because they're just looking to identify with something or anything, he just may win. And I will tell you this man will do damage to New York like no other. Like no other. He's talking about government-run food stores, Joe Pasillo.
Yep. Free buses.
Which will turn into nothing more than homeless shelters that
what
are
does he
on the
think?
move.
See, this is what I mean about Democrats. Or maybe they have a plan because they're not. I don't think they're stupid. I think they're just insane and evil. Okay. I don't think they're stupid. I mean, if I'm a rich guy and I'm in New York City, I know if I'm rich, it really doesn't matter. I'll be like, all right, see ya. You're not getting my money, Zoran. Okay.
Well,
You're not getting my money.
You're right.
But the thing is, what is their plan? What is their, like, who's going to live in New York City? The rich elites that actually support this nonsense? Are they going to stay there, or are they going to be out in the Hamptons in the summertime while people in the city in 100 degrees on 42nd Street are defecating in Times Square?
They're going to move, just like they did in San Francisco and LA. There was a mass exodus. It's the same thing is going to happen. He's a true believer, though. In many ways, he's a pawn. I think the strategy, because it's happening across the whole country, all the big cities have fallen. They have all fallen. And what does that do? It creates chaos. And ultimately, what it does, it hurts business, it hurts America. And the goal is for America to then look to the government for help. Help me. And they're quick to do so.
Two things that have to happen. The blue collar guy in New York whose grandpa voted Democrat needs to stop the crap and needs to start realizing that you could have an independent mind. Grandpa's not going to look down on you. But see, these people, and yes, I'm sorry, I'm judging them. Joe and I have changed our positions. We are against the Republican Party, even though we tend to vote Republican. We've criticized the conservative movement because they don't show much conservatism. We've shown an independent mind. So we have the right to be a little bit judgmental. If you're voting for this guy because he's got a D next to his name, shame on you.
Oh, you're crazy.
Shame on you.
He's going to
Because what do you think? Because you're going to ride a free bus, you're not going to pay the freight, dude? When some kid hits you over the head with a tire iron, okay, and the cops don't come to arrest him because there are no cops, because this guy wants to take $1 billion from the police department, who are you going to cry to, pal? Who are you going to cry to? Go vote for Eric Adams. I don't agree with Eric Adams on much, but I don't think Eric Adams is looking to destroy New York City, Joe Rossinello.
Well, Joe, again, people are delusional. I mean, Joe, I don't know what else to say. I can tell you right now, his policies will destroy New York. It will look like, it already looks like a wasteland to some degree. It will be a disaster.
I'm just curious, like I said, Joe, I'm curious as to all the demographics, groups in New York City, okay? Blue collar ethnics, okay? Jews, Hispanics who are here legally, who tend to be more conservative. Are these, but a lot of them vote Democrat. We know the Jews do. We know a lot of blue collar ethnics do in New York City. Okay. Are they going to really vote for this guy? In other words, when if you look at what's going on in Europe, okay, and what's going on with the attacks by these Muslims in France and England and Ireland, okay, what makes you think, Rabbi, in Borough Park or some of these other parts of New York City, what makes you think they're not going to come and knock down your door? What makes you think that they're not going to attack you? And this guy, as I said, one of his policies is he wants to defund the police and have social workers handle it. I don't know. If I'm a rabbi, I don't want a social worker coming to the door. I want Captain McCluskey from The Godfather coming to the door and cracking some heads and restoring law and order. And I don't think that's too much to ask for, Joe.
Well, like I said, his policies have already proven that they fail. Look at the other cities. It's already proven. And it's sick, but we'll see. It says a lot. I'll tell you another thing, which is interesting. AOC backed him. And and basically it's a feather in her cap because he won. So AOC right now is the leading candidate for the Democratic Party. That is crazy. The party has gone off the rails. My personal opinion, and I could be dead wrong, I think the party's going to die. And I think that's Chris Cuomo's opinion. They have to change. They have to get a little bit more, believe it or not, like Senator, what's it called? I never think I would say this publicly. Fetterman. He is actually a Democrat. They are not Democrats. And that's what Cuomo, I just listened to a clip. He says you should call yourself something else. You are not Democrats. And I would agree with that. That's being objective.
Well, listen, Joe, they wanted to lecture everybody all these years about being intolerant and being intolerant. We have to embrace all ideas. Good. Now we're going to move on, and we're going to come back to it when we play Eric Adams in a little bit. But remember something, Joe. Good. You preach tolerance. Now you, as a Democrat, you either have to make sure this guy doesn't win, or guess what you got to do, Joe? If you're a Democrat in New York City, if you're Chris Cuomo, if you're Andrew Cuomo, or any of them, okay? Well, now you got to tolerate the guy. And by the way, don't call him any names. Don't call him any names. Don't. Make sure you don't point out anything about the guy, his ethnicity, his religion, none of that stuff, okay? Don't call him a communist because those are McCarthyite tactics, Cuomo's, Chris and Andrew. Don't call him a communist, but he is. But don't call him that because you got to be tolerant of all ideas. Well, now the shoe's on your foot. Let's see how you deal with it. Now, Joe, I'm torn, and you have to help me. And all of you out there at the front line with Joe and Joe, you have to help me a little bit. I am leaning towards it was a good thing to take out the nuclear facilities in Iran. And I'm saying this not as a knee jerk, but having thought about it for the last several days. Okay, where I don't whether it was at Netanyahu's bidding, whatever the case might be. I do think at the end of the day, the world is probably a better place, because Iran's nuclear capabilities have been either severely diminished or, as Trump says, obliterated. All right. But here's what I don't want, Joe. Okay. We're not going to be the cause of regime change in Iran. We are not. I don't think we should. So I'm going to play a clip, Joe, and then I really need you to help me with this. Okay.
Israel didn't kick their regime change habit with Iraq or Libya or Syria, it seems. They need another fix. But Matt, this isn't a regime change war. It's about Iran's nuclear program. I wish that were true, but it's not. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene opined that maybe Netanyahu is so feisty about regime change in Iran because he was facing regime change in Israel.
It's not being reported enough that on Thursday, they held a vote in the Knesset, and it was only by 2 votes that Netanyahu won. If he had lost, they would have had another election in Israel, and the polling shows that he would lose if an election were to occur today. That vote happened last Thursday. And then Friday, Israel attacked Iran. That's why the bombs are falling, and it seems very political.
Here's how you know this isn't about Iran's nuclear program. We aren't taking these steps to force denuclearization where the threat is higher and the leaders are even crazier. Take North Korea. North Korea's nuclear program is a far greater threat to the United States than Iran's. It is not even close. I know, I've had the briefings. I was on the House Armed Services Committee for 8 years. Iran has neither the bomb, the delivery system, nor the re-entry vehicle that you would need for any intercontinental ballistic missile to launch and re-enter orbit. North Korea has all three. North Korea could launch a nuclear weapon at mainland United States today. And we've probably got the ability to knock it out of the sky, but Iran can't even get their bird in the air. Iran's Death to America chant isn't really my bag, obviously, but Kim in the Hermit Kingdom points to U.S. cities like Los Angeles and San Diego and Seattle on maps, and he openly discusses wiping off major U.S. population centers from existence. Of course, we aren't looking to drop 100 bunker busters in the mountains of North Korea. President Trump took other brilliant diplomatic steps to constrain North Korea's hostilities. And the same could be done with Iran. But Matt, Iran has kicked out IAEA inspectors. There could be portions of their nuclear program that are secret. a nuclear secret in the Middle East. How about it? If the world is interested in a secret nuclear program in the Middle East, there is a country that won't allow any international inspectors. Israel. Israel has a nuclear weapon. Did you know that? I do. They allow no inspections. They are fully secretive and clandestine about it, and the Americans are fully aware. You know what? I don't even blame Israel for this. If they want to develop a nuclear weapon, if they had the blessing to do so secretly, I'm not in judgment of that. But to drag the world into a regime change war over secret nuclear weapons when you have secret nuclear weapons is a bit hypocritical. President Trump is the kind of guy who never gives up on a deal. Throughout his life, he's probably made deals and made lots of money on them, even when others walked away or didn't see value in a transaction. So here's a deal. How about Iran and Israel both give up their secret nuclear weapon programs? If Trump got that deal, he wouldn't only get the Nobel Peace Prize, they'd probably name it the Trump Peace Prize forevermore.
So I know that, I know Antonella thinks, well, she disagrees with me, and I can understand why. Because, again, I'm going by looking at a variety of different media outlets, and talking about Iran and what they have. But I will say this. What Matt Gaetz said is absolutely right. The double standards, the hypocrisy, the picking and choosing of whose nuclear facilities you want to take out. And I know North Korea is a different animal, okay? But, Joe, I need your help.
Ultimately, if Iran wants to take out their nuclear facility, if Israel, that's your business. That's how I look at it. Like, you're their neighbor. If you think that this is a problem, frankly, you should go through diplomatic means. But if it's your deal, like, I do not want to get involved. Period. In nothing. We're not the police of the world. First of all, we're not the country that we were. America is a mess. It is a mess, dude. Like, our cities are a mess. We're going to talk about that later. Our people are a wreck. It is a mess. We have to take care of our own country. We have to focus on that. We have to get healthy again. And America isn't healthy. And that's why I want nothing to do with it. That doesn't mean I'm against Israel. That just means, listen, you're our ally. We'll still help you. We're your friend. But this is on you. No more wars. Nothing. We're not the police of the world. I am not interested. I think we also have too many bases. China doesn't have bases all over the world. We do. That costs us trillions of dollars. Right. Our money. We just gave a ridiculous amount of money to the Ukraine, which was nothing more than a money pit. Yeah. Nothing more than a money pit. All got flushed down the toilet. It's a losing cause. They told us there was no way the Ukraine was going to win. Remember that lie? I sure do. How much of that money got laundered to places that God knows where that it is right now and enriching people that it shouldn't have? All our money.
Right.
Think about what we could have done with that. Build a hospital, develop the western part of North Carolina, help the people of Palestine, Ohio. Basic things that we need. This is not the America, the thriving America of the baby boomers after World War II. It's simply
But Joe, if you accept the premise, if you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Arsenello, Way in the Breach, if you accept the premise, of this program tonight, which is there is a new world order. We're going to get into Carney up there in Canada, okay? Then everything you said, and specifically the America First part of MAGA, okay? Just that whole idea. Taking care of our own problems, paying down our debt, securing our borders, building up our military to protect ourselves, not protect other countries, okay? Doing all that, Joe, that's why the treasonous politicians in this country that if I was in favor of the death penalty, they all get lined up and shot, okay? Because they're selling out their country for the interests of the New World Order. What's going on in Israel is part and parcel of that. What's going on in Iran, what's going on in Ukraine and Russia is all part of this state of perpetual war that we have to be in so that Lindsey Graham could get up there and say, we got to send more money to the Ukraine. It's about our freedom. No, it's not about my freedom, Senator Graham. It's about your pocket. All right. And the pockets of your friends in the military industrialized complex.
See, people
So
hear
this
that,
is
they
all
think that's a
about, tonight's
conspiracy.
show is all about the New World Order. And Joe, this is all part of everything you just said is everything they hate.
That's not conspiracy. And if someone thinks that is conspiracy, why is it that 6 of the 10 richest counties in America are around DC? 5 of them are in Virginia, 1's in Maryland. What is produced there? That's all consultants. That's all lobbyists who are nothing more than barnacles on a ship sucking the life out of this country. How is it possible that 6 of the 10 wealthiest counties in America are around Washington, D.C.? That's literally like the kings and the lords of a feudal system that live around the emperor. I mean,
Right.
literally,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
exactly what that is. Doesn't that trouble you? You see, this is where we get lost. You know, my wife told me a funny story today. She got her nails done, and it was a Vietnamese woman who did her nails. She came to this country in 1986. And what she said to my wife, they were just talking like in politics. She said, these people want us to be divided. This, no lie, so they could take advantage of us. She's right. She figured it out.
1,000% right.
She figured it out. And yet people, and what else she said, I swear, this is no lie. She says we bicker about things that really in the end don't benefit us because they don't get resolved. We got to get our country back. That's why I voted for Donald Trump, to clean house. This very week on C-SPAN, a woman who worked for the Biden administration admitted for 20 months she used the auto pen. She was like an administrative assistant, basically, something along those lines. How aren't people going to jail?
Right.
How?
Right.
How are you okay with that? Who cares?
And not for another, Joe, along those same lines, you talk about why we voted for Trump. The Epstein list is probably a who's who of New World Order types. I mean, that's probably why we have not seen it. That and the fact that probably a lot of Trump's friends are on that list too. Because we were promised we were going to see that. When you think about things like that, when you think about, let's say, those people that were going down to that island, okay, it really is, Joe, it really is like a movie. It's like did you ever see the James Bond movie Spectre?
I don't recall it, but I've seen a bunch of his films.
Okay, so Christoph Waltz plays Blofeld, all right? And Blofeld is like, he is the guy, okay? So all the other Bond villains are all under Blofeld. Blofeld is the head of the New World Order. He's the head of Spectre. Spectre knows everything. Spectre controls everything. Spectre controls human trafficking. Spectre controls the drug flow. Spectre controls everything, and Blofeld controls Spectre. Okay. The bottom line is everybody in that scene, in that room, is on Jeffrey Epstein's list. And everybody knows it. That's why we don't see it. Why is Bill Clinton endorsing the communist to be mayor of New York City? Because he's being told to. He's compromised. Everybody who you either think is moderate or you think is a conservative and stabs us in the back, guaranteed somebody's got something on them. And I'll use the Epstein list as an example. That's why we haven't seen it. That's why they could get away with saying things like, we really need regime change in Iraq. Do we? That's for the Iran. That's for the Iranian people
100%.
To rise up against their oppressors.
Not our business. And frankly, that's exactly what I don't trust Netanyahu. I don't trust him. Not
I used to. I don't anymore.
Word do I trust that man. And that's why I was against it from the very beginning. It's not our business. Netanyahu has proven to be untrustworthy. He did the same nonsense with the Iraq deal in 2008? Actually, that was...
They have weapons of mass destruction.
All the crap that came out of his mouth. It's all on tape. I don't trust him. And like I said, it's none of our business.
Didn't we play that clip last week?
We did.
Going back to 1996, where he's in different venues in front of the United States House of Representatives. Iran is 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away from obtaining a nuclear weapon. You've been saying that for 30 years, not 3 weeks, Bibi. I used to believe him. I did. I admit it. I admit my mistakes, Joe. I'm humble enough to do that. Okay. I believed him. But then when you see him saying it every couple of years, you're kind of like, dude, you said that they would have it 3 years and 3 weeks ago, but they don't have it. And then, and again, now I know I started by saying that, okay, if in fact the CIA and the Mossad for that matter, and Trump had reliable information and they took this out, my inclination is to say, all right, it's done. Perhaps it's one less country in the world that's got nuclear weapons. But this idea of regime change, here, I'll play something for you. Joe, I like J.D. Vance. I really do. I don't know what he's talking about.
You said totally obliterated. The president has said totally obliterated the Iran nuclear program.
Yeah.
Do you know for sure where all the highly enriched uranium is?
Well, Brett, I think that's actually not the question before us. The question before us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to a weapons grade level, and can they convert that fuel to a nuclear weapon? And we know, based on the success of our mission, of course, the leadership of the president, but the incredible skill of our military, that the two mission objectives are completely successful. We know that they cannot build a nuclear weapon. Now, you asked about the highly enriched uranium.
Yeah, like 900 pounds of it.
But what we know, Brett, is that uranium is something that exists in very large supply. Our goal was to bury the uranium, and I do think the uranium is buried, but our goal was to eliminate the enrichment and eliminate their ability to convert that enriched fuel into a nuclear weapon. I think this is an important point, Brett, because so many of the folks who have focused on the highly enriched uranium,
sure, 60%.
The main focus, Brett, has been to destroy their enrichment capacity, because we don't want that 60% uranium to become 90% uranium. That's the real concern, and that's what was so successful about our mission.
Joe, help me, please.
That's just a lawyered statement. And he's a smart man. He went to Yale Law School. He knows how to argue. He knows how to pivot. He knows how to deflect. And that's just what that was. And frankly, that type of conversation does not resonate. This is a populist movement. I do not want a lawyered statement. I'm not interested in a lawyered statement. And frankly, they've pivoted from this was about stopping their nuclear program. They've floated things about a regime change. Then recently, as in today, I think I heard this on what's it called? It was Glenn Greenwald said it. I listened to something he put out, basically saying that Trump says we're not about a regime change. They've been all over the map on it. It's not our business. Ultimately, it's my money. It's my money, taxpayer money. It's your money. It's time to start taking care of the people in America. Stop giving money to people, frankly, that have nothing to do with our interests. Iran cannot bomb the United States of America. They're not that stupid to do that. You have to be stupid beyond comprehension to do something like that. There wouldn't be one living person in the country if someone did that. Not a living human being. Let me take it another step. There wouldn't be a living thing in the country. Nothing. No one's that stupid.
Right.
It has no threat to the United States of America. As Matt Gaetz said, North Korea has weapons. Why aren't we doing that there? Israel, you're our ally. You're our friend. But at the end of the day, this is on you, dude. It's on you. And frankly, I don't think they're doing themselves a service. The world, I'm going to tell you right now, has had it with Israel. And I'm telling you this right now, I actually think they're hurting themselves by doing this. People don't believe them. And this is just, you listen to the rhetoric. You listen to the different, like, I heard something recently at the UN. The world has had it. It's time maybe to pivot and change your plans. Maybe. Because what you're doing, particularly under Netanyahu, hasn't worked.
Right.
And it's not working. It doesn't work.
But it all seems to be part of what we're talking about here tonight at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, about the New World Order. What you have to do if you want to achieve these goals, whether it be Iran, And I do believe that's all part and parcel of the New World Order, whether it be Iran, whether it be Ukraine and Russia, with Islamic invasion of Europe, okay, and what's going on there. You have to convince people that they have something to fear. So you say, and this is where I will agree with you. You say that that Iran doesn't pose a threat to me. I think it was Antonella or Teresa in the chat room said the same thing. Iran, right, exactly. So, but what they'll try to do, the same way Lindsey Graham did with the Ukraine, same thing when Nikki Haley did with the Ukraine, is try to convince you that it's in your interest that we do these things. And I'm with you. And I'm with you that people are fed up and they say, you're doing everything that's not in my interest. My interest is helping those people in North Carolina. Like you said, my interest is helping the people in Palestine, Ohio. My interest is giving more than $700 per family to the people in Hawaii when the volcano erupted. That's my interest. My interest is not spending trillions of dollars on overseas bases to protect Europe. That's another one, too. You say you're tired of Israel, and a lot of people are, Joe. A lot of people are. A lot of people are tired of Europe, too, that we have to kowtow somehow
100%.
to NATO, say, you caused this problem with Russia. You did. You know, people got to start saying that. You caused this problem with Russia. This was a reaction of the Russians and of Putin against you, NATO, who kept pushing that line up to their border, kept pushing that line up to their border. When Kamala Harris, idiot that she is, goes to Ukraine and says Ukraine's going to become part of NATO, what do you think is going to happen? They don't buy your New World Order. They don't want it. We don't want it. But you have to have all of these things going on. And we'll get to Carney up in Canada because one of their main weapons is the climate hoax, okay? You have to have people convinced that your life, Joe Ressino, my life, our kids, our wives, in other words, our lives are in danger if we don't allow them to do all these things. Now, they got a lot of power. Thomas Massey has something to say about that.
What he promised us was we would put America first. And I think there are still voices in this administration. You've still got J.D. Vance. You've still got Tulsi Gabbard. You still, RFK Jr., you still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this.
I tell you, the more I listen to Thomas Massey, the more I like the guy. Because you want to know why? You mentioned, Joe, after we played the last clip about lawyered statements. That guy never has a lawyered statement coming out of his mouth.
No.
Never. You know what he is? He's a straight shooter. And I said this last week because we were talking a little bit about this last week because we were talking about Netanyahu, Iran's 3 weeks away from a bomb, whatever. But we talked about this. Pat Buchanan was saying this 30 years ago, all right? And he was ostracized. Thomas Massey saying it, and a lot of other people are saying it. Say the Israel lobby in the United States is too powerful. It's another reason, and I know it's a completely different conversation, why we need to go back, or we need to have, not go back to, we need to have public funding of elections.
Oh, 100%.
So that these politicians cannot take money, whether it's from IPAC, whether it's from the Communist Party USA, whether it's from the unions, whether it's from the NRA, whether it's from the pro-life movement. You can't take any money. You're running for Congress. An average congressional race costs $20 million. I'm using an arbitrary number. Here's your $20 million. When you run out, you get $10 million each. When you run out, that's all the money you get. Yeah, but these people want no. Too much corruption. Too much corruption. Massey's the only guy who points out the fact that that's right. Now, all these congressmen, and we got into Ted Cruz last week and basing his support of Israel on the book of Genesis, which shows you why Protestantism is just off the freaking rails. All right. Money's got to get taken out of the equation. IPAC needs to be stripped of its power and influence over United States members of the House and Senate. And the only way to do that is to have public funding of elections and cut off all the money. Maybe some of those people you mentioned in those counties that live around Washington, D.C., maybe they'll go out and find a real job and move to a different part of the country rather than living in a swamp.
That's why that will never happen. That would take literally a revolution because people don't give up money. They just don't. It would take literally a revolution. And you're 100% right. If we want a country of the people, because we don't have that, Anyone who thinks that, you're telling yourself lies. Massey's using one lobby. How about the pharmaceutical lobby? I'm not going to get into the whole COVID thing. What I am going to say is this: if you don't think that Pfizer, the lobby of Pfizer, had something to do with making America force everybody to get that shot, and only 3 companies, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, got the contract, you are delusional. You're delusional. And here's another thing. Bill Clinton allowed this. Do you know that we're one of 2 countries in the world that are allowed to have pharmaceutical commercials on television? And we were not allowed to do that until Bill Clinton did that. Us and New Zealand. The only 2 countries in the world. And that's for a reason. Because medicine should not be monetized. And that is exactly what it's all about. And that's what RFK, you could agree with some things he does, you could disagree with others, but he's actually trying to stop the commercials of pharmaceuticals. You watch Fox News, all that's on, one commercial after the next commercial after the next commercial. Pharmaceutical companies, that's just another example of how money moves the dial.
Joe, I've watched so many Ozempic commercials. I'm surprised I'm not 40 pounds lighter right now.
Well, there you
That's
go.
How many
Just
Ozempic commercials.
That should never. I mean, this is, you want to talk about fixing the system. This has nothing to do with being a Republican or Democrat. It means basically you have a say. That's what the country's about. My vote matters.
Right.
My vote should be just as important as Jamie Dimon, the CEO's vote of JP Morgan. And I could tell you right now, because I worked at JP Morgan years ago, that is not the case.
No.
And if you think that, you are just not living in the same world as I am. That's for sure.
Is, a few years ago, see, Hollywood, which is privy to all this stuff, I'm totally convinced, okay? They did I forgot the name of the movie. Brendan Gleeson's in it, right? And he plays the CEO of a drug company, right? And there's an epidemic breaks out in this area. And the only company that has the vaccine is his company, right? So at one point during the investigation, I forgot who the lead actor was, during the investigation, and he's basically busted, and they confront him with it, that he actually is the one who created the virus, spread the virus, so that everybody would come to his company to provide the vaccine. And he looks right at them and he says, I sell drugs. That's what I do. And I created my own market. Why is that? Now that they make that fiction, right? Hollywood, this is way before COVID. They presented that as fiction, but isn't that true?
Well, dude, that's the reason why that they don't have commercials for pharmaceutical companies, and we didn't have them until Bill let them do it. How much money did they give him, I wonder, to allow, as in his campaign?
Right.
You see, that is the problem. It's America Inc. It doesn't work for us anymore, in the people. It doesn't.
Well, MAGA has to make as part of its movement, okay? Because it's not. I think it's still a movement that's on the ascendancy. I think there's a lot of things that are going to have to be shifted, okay? Within the movement and different positions that different people are taking. One of the things that needs to be added, and we talked about it tonight, maybe they should listen to Joe and Joe. We need to do away with all private, whether it's you or me or the pro-life America, whoever it might be. I don't care who it is. Not one thin dime to a politician's campaign. Not one thin dime. Public funding of elections. Now, conservatives got to get on board with that, but they're not, because their friends are in the pharmaceutical industry too.
Joe, that's like I said, it would take a revolution. It would literally take a revolution.
Do you think that RFK Jr., RFK Jr., let me ask you your opinion. Again, I was a little skeptical about him. We certainly here at the front line with Joe and Joe certainly don't agree with him on several of his positions, not the least of which is his position on abortion. Okay. But he's going up, Joe, he's going up in front of Congress. He's pointing right. He told Bernie Sanders right to his face, you've taken more money than anybody in the Senate. And recently, I saw a clip from a recent hearing in the House of Representatives. He told one of the representatives, I forgot the guy's name. He says, "You've taken $2 million from the pharmaceutical industry, more than anybody on this committee." And you know what they try to say? You can't impugn the character of a representative. He wasn't impugning his character. He basically pointed out a fact. He said, "You have taken $2 million from the pharmaceutical industries, more than anybody on this committee." He said the same thing to Bernie Sanders. And what does Bernie Sanders do? No. The workers at the pharmaceutical companies. That's who I took the money from. Just the workers, not the CEO. Bullshit, Bernie. Pardon my language. Bullshit. Okay?
That's
you
true.
know exactly what you're doing. You know, and he's a good, by the way, just for everybody out there at the front line with Joe and Joe, Bernie Sanders, he is a great socialist. You want to know how you know that, Joe? He's rich. See, he has millions. And if you want to get rich, and this has been proven by people like Fidel Castro, all the way to the founder, Patrice Cullors, who founded Black Lives Matter. If you want to get rich, become a communist. Become the leader of a communist movement, and you will get rich, and Karl Marx will be turning over in hell. That's what'll happen there. But yeah, but again, it's all about the New World Order. We're going to get into Mark Carney in a minute, but I want to go back to what we were talking about New York, because what's going on there is part of all of this unrest, this civil unrest that they're trying to create. And that's exactly what you're going to get in New York City if this guy has his way. And here's Eric Adams on this.
Mr. Mayor, it's not just defund the police, this candidate, Democratic Socialist. He wants to freeze the rent. He wants city-run grocery stores, social workers to replace the police, because that's going to help. He wants $60 billion of debt fund for affordable housing. He wants free buses, no cost for childcare, baby baskets for newborn, and a $30 minimum wage. How can someone vote for this?
He's a snake oil salesman. Mm-hmm. He will say and do anything to get elected. Think about this for a moment. He wants to raise 1%. He wants to raise tax on 1% of New Yorkers' high-income earners. As the mayor, you don't have the authority to do that. You know who has the authority to do that? An assemblyman, which he is. He wants to do free buses. He could have done it at assemblyman. He doesn't understand the power of government and how you must making sure you improve your economy, raise the standard of living, and this is what we've done in the city. And I'm looking forward to being on the campaign trail and showing New Yorkers we can't go backwards. And New Yorkers never surrender or quit. I'm never going to quit for the city that I love.
So here's the thing. I didn't like Eric Adams, not as a person. I'm not judging him as a person, as someone who was up for mayor of New York City. I thought he was probably equal to, perhaps a little bit better than de Blasio. He's proven himself not to be a knee-jerk ideologue. Now, it'd be very difficult for me to vote for him. But if I'm in New York City, even if I'm a Republican, okay, and I think if you don't vote in the primary, you could vote for whoever you want in the general election. I would have no choice but to go out and vote for Eric Adams.
Oh, there's no question about that.
And I think if Republicans in New York City who would like in their hearts to vote for Curtis Lewa, I think Curtis is running again.
He is.
Okay. All right. So Curtis is running again. Curtis doesn't have a shot. He doesn't. But if you think that the only thing is with under Eric Adams, you got to say things have gotten worse. I don't know if some of those things are in his control. You walk through New York City several times a week. I worked in New York City before I moved to Arizona. Okay. So he's not doing the most bang up job, but he's not a disaster. Whereas this guy would be a straight up disaster.
Oh, he destroys the city. I'll be honest with you. We interviewed Curtis Lewa. I like him as a human being. He's got to drop out. He's got to drop out. Eric Adams is the only hope to beat this guy. This guy is going to have a lot of outside money behind him. All of the cultural communists in America are going to pour money into his campaign. Big money. And they need every vote that they can get to beat him. Curtis Lewa has to put his backing behind Eric Adams. That's number one. And number two, if you think that this guy is going to help New York City, you are not paying attention. That's all I can say. You simply are not paying attention to what happened in Los Angeles and what has happened in Chicago. It's the same guy, just a different looking person. It's the same guy with the same empty promises. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what else I could say, but just look to those cities. If that's what you want, well, then reap the whirlwind. That's all I could say.
This is going to be worse. And by the way, I don't know how radical the New York City Assembly is. I don't. I don't know how the power structure works. But if members of the city council in New York City are going to back this guy, Zoran, okay? If they're going to back, I'm telling you right now, Joe, everybody knows I don't say who I work for because I don't want to get doxxed, all right? But I work for a restaurant chain, and they have restaurants here in Arizona. That's why I moved here. And I started with them when I was working in New York City, living in Jersey, but working in New York City. Joe, I know that. Let's just take that industry. Let's take how much money that industry generates for New York City. If that city council or the assembly, as Eric Adams has pointed out, if they pass a $30 an hour minimum wage, all restaurants are shutting down. Not one restaurant will be open. Not one. Okay? Because you cannot make money with food costs being the way they are, liquor costs being the way they are, wine costs being the way they are, energy costs being the way they are. If all of a sudden you go to $30 an hour, and I want workers to make as much money as possible, but you have to do it in a realistic way, okay? $30 out, every restaurant I know is going to shut down, particularly the big ones. They're going to say, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'll give you an example. You want an example? Part of my job is I have to run a wine program in the restaurant I work with. I'm a manager, so that's one of the things I do. And I found out one of the major distributors, I read this week, just pulled out of California. Joe, it's a multi-billion-dollar operation. You know what they did? They went like this. See ya. That's because of what this guy's proposing, or things like he's proposing. They've been doing it in California, and here's a multi-billion-dollar company. So you know what? We'll make money in the rest of the country, but as far as California is concerned, we're not distributing liquor or wine or anymore. We're not doing it anymore. We're not doing it. And that's the consequence. You know what happens, Joe? This is a rather large distributor. They employ many, many people in California. All those people are going to be out of a job. And that's what this guy's going to do in New York. And I wouldn't be shocked if he got elected, if the city council goes along with it, because of shaming them because they don't want to support the Muslim communist mayor.
Yeah,
I can already hear it.
I don't think he is the Muslim angle. I think is the wrong angle, because he is all about like the queer liberation. He is a full-fledged leftist populist. He went to Bowdoin College in Maine. He is like the epitome of, and like, you know, from those like liberal schools. He's a young guy. He's like, I think he's 33 years old, or like, he's not like a Muslim. Like, he may be culturally a Muslim, but his belief system does not mirror that of a devout Muslim. That is a fact. If you go down his list, mention like queer, like liberation, like trans and kids, because he's all about that. Look that up. This is not my opinion. This is his facts, his rhetoric.
Right.
Dude, a devout Muslim's not about that. No,
We saw that, Joe, last year in Michigan, didn't we?
That's 100%. So my point is, attacking him from that angle, I don't think is the correct angle. He is a leftist. He is a cultural Marxist based upon his opinions, his facts. These are facts. They just listed $30 an hour. Like you said, all boarded up. Businesses will be boarded up.
Right.
Run food stores. That's straight out of Cuba. That's straight out of Cuba. Guess who's not going to be buying food from one of those stores?
Him.
Exactly. Wake up. Like, Joe, it's just sick. I literally, I can't wrap my arms around it. However, one of the driving reasons why the country is behind that, because people no longer have hope. The country has become very top heavy. Right now, 88% of those who own equities in America, 88% of the equities that are owned by Americans fall under 12% of the nation. 12%. So basically, America has become very top heavy. The middle class has shrunk considerably. And that is why people are listening to him, because they don't have hope and they want to believe the lies. They want to believe the lies. And that is what has to be addressed. And that's what Trump is trying to do. We're going to see. Time is going to tell whether it's successful or not with the tariffs bringing manufacturing back to America. But our oligarchs have sold this country out over a period of time. This has been going on for decades. It's not new.
Well,
And
I
middle
think
class is gone, and that's why people are actually listening to this man.
I think E. Michael Jones, and I don't know how right he is. Time will tell. He talks about that we are at the end of the third American empire. In other words, if you look at the American empire from the Revolution to the Civil War, then from the Reconstruction to World War II, and from World War II to today, about an 80-year span in each time. And you talk about hope. Okay. And I know you like E. Michael Jones, and I like E. Michael Jones. I think he's a supremely intelligent man, and he knows history and literature and philosophy up, down, and sideways. Okay. I don't care how many times the ADL calls him an anti-Semite. The bottom line is this: I think he's right. And the other thing I think he's right about is the book that we interviewed him on that he wrote called Logos Rising. I do think that people are waking up. Here's the problem. And we're going to segue from this into Mr. Carney up there in Canada. Okay. The problem is, Joe, the people who are waking up right now they're not pulling the strings. They don't have the power. Power's got to be taken. In other words, like in New York City, if you want to make sure that a communist, cultural Marxist like Zoran does not get elected, then yes, if you and I were living in New York City, we'd have to bite the bullet and we'd have to go and support Eric Adams. I would. I say that.
But that's what
up.
people have to do. And I'm going to tell you, the people who are supporting, I understand you may like Curtis Sliwa. He has no chance of winning.
Right.
Like, we have to start thinking collectively here. When you see a threat like this, and it is a threat to you, to your family businesses, to your safety. This is not me making this up. Look at Chicago and look at Los Angeles. This is a fact.
Europe. Look at
there
Europe.
You go. Look at Dublin. Look at London. This is real. And this is where, again, we can't get out of our own way, Joe. People, it's like watching a drug addict slowly kill himself.
Joe, we know from our faith as Christians, if you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, Way in the Breach, we're going to be talking about Mark Carney in a minute. We've been talking about the New World Order and how it manifests itself in different things that are currently going on in the news. But Joe, at the end of the day, God allows us as collectively as human beings and individually as sinners to fall sometimes, many times, because maybe that's the only way you're going to wake up. The only problem I have with that on a societal level is that if we fall too far, these people are going to have real power. See, they think they have power, and they do have power. Don't get me wrong. They have power. I'm not denying that. But I'm talking about real power. I'm talking about the power to literally undo the Constitution, to repeal all of our First Amendment rights, certainly the Second Amendment rights, everything, okay? Fifth Amendment, 14th Amendment, all of it, okay? The right to vote. They've shown a propensity to do that. My fear is that we fall so far. And again, I'm not God, and I'm not pretending to speak for God. But not for nothing, we do need a little comeuppance in this country. We do need a little humble pie in this country to make us realize, you know what, maybe I should rethink my ideas. I have. You have. Many people who watch us here at the front line with Joe and Joe have. I've questioned a lot of things that I've believed in my whole life, particularly on the conservative side. Okay? Now, if I could do it, then anybody could do it, to say, you know what, I got to start acting in my interest, not in the interest of my party or my movement. Okay, but in my interest, what are the interests that I have? What do I think is best for my country? All right, and leave aside what Ted Cruz says, or leave aside what Lindsey Graham says. And quite frankly, now and I voted for Donald Trump 3 times, and so did you. Leave aside what Donald Trump says too. We need to do what's right. And Joe, this is where I want to comment from you. We might need a little pain. Maybe we need a lot more than a little pain to maybe finally wake up and start taking power back as we should.
To your point, that's what happened in El Salvador. It took about 60 to 70 years. It was the most dangerous country in the world. And then 85% of the country voted for the president that's currently there. And now the country is the safest country in the world. He arrested 70,000 criminals, 70,000 within the first 6 months of his presidency. And people call him a fascist. People call him this. People call him that. Well, guess what? When your people are being threatened with murder and your country is the most unsafe place on the face of the planet, that's what it takes. And that's what it took to get 85% of the country to vote for him. You see, that is ultimately the direction that it's going. Ultimately, what's going to have, and a lot of people aren't going to like it, you're going to get a crazy nationalist who basically, when the people have had it up here, some people think that's Donald Trump. I actually think it's not even close to the bottom.
Not even
yet.
close.
My opinion, you're going to get a cowboy that comes in. And frankly, maybe that's what the country needs. You see, people don't like this word. This is the problem with a lot of people who vote on the, like, we'll call it the left-leaning side. Rules. Anytime a rule is in place, they call you a fascist. Well, I got news for you. Life is about rules. And if you don't have boundaries, you have chaos. It's just the way it is. It's reality. And I could remember when Giuliani, how he turned the city around. I could remember towards the end of the time when he was the mayor, the little Nazi mustache pictures that they were putting all over New York City. Giuliani gave New York a golden age for 25 years. That was the result of his mayorship.
And the people squandered it. The
Exactly.
people of New York squandered it.
Exactly.
It's on them. It's
Joe,
on them.
Bill de Blasio gutted the police force. That he took away $1 billion. And New York City turned into a swamp again. But again, it comes down to, I do not want to be told what to do. But here's the irony. When you allow a society to do whatever it wants, believe it or not, there has to be more rules because you have to keep the people in check. Right. That is the irony of when you basically say, do whatever you want. Then they have to take your freedoms away.
Right. But Joe, remember something. We're talking about people who always rail against the rules. The only problem they have with the rules is it's not their rules. They have more rules than I always said. God has 10 commandments. These people have 10,000. All right. And they all begin with thou shalt not. Thou shalt not be intolerant. Thou shalt not be allowed to carry a gun. Thou shalt not have the right to free speech. Look at the way we're talking tonight. And this is what gives you a little hope too. You know, it used to be if you mentioned Israel or you mentioned IPAC, you were ostracized, as we mentioned here at the front line with Joe and Joe many times. There's a lot of people talking about that now. They'll take all of your freedom away, okay? But one of the main things, Joe, one of the main ways that they're able to sell it, see, remember, you always have to create fear. That's what they did during COVID. They created fear. If I get COVID, I'm going to die and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And they created fear and everybody rushed to get the vaccine and all that stuff. All right. It's the same thing with the climate hoax.
A world that's more dangerous and divided. A time where the rules-based international, the global order, rules-based global order is under threat in a time when technological change is accelerating. And we really have two choices as a jurisdiction, as a country in this circumstance. We can nostalgically look back and long for the old order to somehow return, or we can build a new one with purpose and partnership. And as the most European of the non-European countries, Canada looks first to the European Union. And so today, this is a new era of cooperation. Our strategic Canada-EU or EU-Canada strategic partnership for the future will build a new and deeper relationship that brings us closer together. But now we're working alongside the European Union to combat climate change, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and to protect, amongst other things, academic and scientific freedoms.
So let's stop right there. Joe, can I take a break? Because I think I want to go throw up, and then I'll come back. Here's the problem in the world. People believe what Mark Carney just said is somehow going to be beneficial for them. You want the old order? I don't want your order, Mark. I can tell you that much. I don't want your new world order. I certainly don't want what Europe has to offer. The Catholic Church held off the Muslims for 1,300 years. You people let them walk right in. I have something to learn from Europe. I have something to learn from them. Okay, they're a model of how a civilization is supposed to function. They can't even go in Paris. You can't even go send police into certain districts because the Muslims run it. Okay, so the bottom line is when he talks about I'm going to throw it right over to you. But when he talks about cooperation, you know what that reminds me of? You remember the RICO statute, Joe? The RICO statute is still on the books. Okay, and they used the RICO statute to go after organized crime. And what did it basically say? Was that when you have all these enterprises going and all these connections, okay, you don't even have to know each other and you could both be charged for the same crime under the same statute. That's what he means by cooperation. It's the gangsters are in charge. Why? Because they don't look like Dutch Schultz, because they don't look like John Gotti. He presents himself as a businessman and he gets up there in a suit and I'm the Prime Minister of Canada. He's a gangster. And their gun is climate change. That's the gun that they use, and they keep it pointed at your head. And they say, if you don't give me power, this climate change is going to kill you. If you don't give me your money, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger on this gun. That's all climate change is. That's what he wants to do. It's not cooperation, Joe. It's collusion. I'll give it one step further. It's not cooperation. It's racketeering. That's what it is.
Everything Carney just said is ideology over his own people. If you don't believe me, look to what Trudeau did to your country. We have a lot of Canadians in the chat right now. In 9 years, he destroyed it. Well, he's going to exponentially destroy Canada. So it's ideology over people. Don't believe me? Look at the metrics. The metrics speak for themselves. And as far as partnering with the EU is a modern version of feudalism. And I'm going to give you an example. It's a completely failed state. If you live in Portugal, 80% of your tax dollars goes to Brussels. 20% stays in Portugal. You have no representation at all. You are a serf of the EU, Portugal. Right. And that is what this man wants to model his governance on. It's nothing more than ideology over people. And if you vote for that and you're not uber rich, where it doesn't matter who the president or the prime minister is, you're frankly not paying attention. You're simply not paying attention to what's going on right. It's not even history. What's going on right in front of your eyes.
You're a lot more charitable than I am because you call it ideology. I don't give it the legitimacy to call it ideology. I call it racketeering. All of these those two when it comes to the race issue, all of these climate change hoaxsters, John Kerry, Mark Carney, EU, everybody in the Democrat Party, they're all doing the same thing. They are extorting money out of the people of the individual nations that they claim they're trying to help. So Carney's going to extort. And who do they get it from? Like you said, they don't get it from the rich people. They get some from the rich people. But like I said, the rich people, they don't care. They're getting all sorts of favors in return. It's an offset for them. They're going to take it out of the middle class's ass is what they're going to do. In other words, let's say I saw John Kennedy. He was questioning somebody. He says, you want to go carbon neutral by 2050. How are you going to do that? And the guy said, number one thing I do, got to get rid of fossil fuels. Who gets hurt by that? Rich people or us? I got to move to Florida. I live in a desert, so I don't get too cold here. Okay. But the thing is, like, if you live in a cold state, what he says, I got to up and move because I can't afford the bills after you get done eliminating or banning fossil fuels. Okay, banning oil, banning gas. Really, this is what they want to do. Like I said, Joe, it's not ideology. I think the people that are listening to it have bought into an ideology. I think the people that are perpetrating it are nothing but a bunch of gangsters. And they use this hoax, and it's one of the many things I like that Donald Trump does. He says it flat out: the Green New Scam. It's a scam, but it's a scam on a multinational level, Joe. That's raking in billions and billions and billions of our money. That's what it is. It's just a shift of income. It's a transfer of income from all the working people to them. John Kerry's not going to stop enjoying his life because he's worried that so-called climate change is an existential threat to the planet. You think he's going to stop living his life? You think he's going to stop heating his home? Al Gore and the rest of them? They say, well, we pay offsets. What does money have to do with it? If burning these fuels, according to you, is going to kill everybody on the planet, then what does it matter if you spend a few extra dollars in taxes on it? You have to stop using it too. We know they're not going to do that. They've shown themselves not just to be hypocrites, they've shown themselves to be the racketeers and the gangsters that I'm saying that they are, Joe.
And again, any people, the evidence is there. You could even hear it out of their own mouths. I invite you to listen to the World Economic Forum. It's very informative. Listen to what they say. That's the beauty of the internet. You could actually hear. You don't even have to get a filter from a news agency. You could hear it right out of their mouths. Joe, what can you do? All you could do is try to inform people. You can't change hearts. You can't change minds. But that is exactly what people have to start to do. Because I'm going to tell you this. Life's going to get hard. Life's going to get real hard. I can't speak for a lot of our Canadian viewers and listeners because we have a lot of them. They're in the chat right now. But I know life has gotten hard in Canada. That I could speak to absolutely, positively. That is a fact. And life is going to get much harder in America. It already has for the people who live in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Look at the people in California. California is a wasteland. And now you're going to elect a cultural Marxist who's self-professed. He's not even hiding it. And there's a very good chance that he's going to become the mayor of New York, and he is going to butcher the city. He is going to butcher what's left of that city. And if you believe that, I don't know what I could do other than sit back and just say, maybe after you reap the whirlwind, you'll figure it out. But at the end of the day, the only people you're hurting is yourself.
That's right. And Virginia, I just want to comment, Virginia's in the chat room, says they're already looking at convention of states. With all due respect, Virginia, and I was very hopeful when Mark Levin used to talk about that all the time, and making the constitutional argument for convention of states. Virginia, that takes the political will that our leaders, okay, and members of the Republican Party, they don't have that. Because in my opinion, they're in the bag too. Them, their friends, they have too much to lose. At the end of the day, we have to realize too, the Republican Party and the so-called conservatives in the House and the Senate, they don't care about us either. So don't go anywhere, everybody, because we're gonna leave you with a clip from Ron Paul from a while ago, a guy who we always like here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks again for joining us here Thursday nights, 9:00 Eastern time across social media. Please, wherever you're watching this video, hit a like, a subscribe, a share. Do all that fun stuff. Help them out. See you next week. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Is if another country does to us what we do others, we're not going to like it very much. So I would say that maybe we ought to consider a golden rule in foreign policy. Don't do to other nations what we don't want to have them do to us. So we endlessly bomb these countries, and then we wonder why they get upset with us, and yet it continues on and on. I mean, this idea that we can't debate foreign policy, then all we have to do is start another war. I mean, it's warmongering. They're building up for another war against Iran, and people can't wait to get in another war. This country doesn't need another war. We need to quit the ones we're in. We need to save the money and bring our troops home.